Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. We have a very sobering topic to discuss right now. No scotch necessary. Well, unless you really want some. But, folks, I can say this. We don't ever need to be surprised by what happens, right? Never be, well, I guess maybe we could be surprised. We could be caught off guard. But to say we never expected what is happening would be really far, far out. We are preppers. We're patriotic Americans. We obey the law. We are not violent. We pay our taxes. We care about our kids, and we defend our country and take our oaths seriously. So what happened here is terrible because I can see and understand this, folks. Jeremy Brown, right? Master Sergeant, retired in the U.S. Army, Special Forces, Green Beret guy, ran as a conservative, a Republican, folks, a Republican congressional candidate, was approached by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to be an informant, an agent provocateur. What else would they have had him do once he agreed to being, see, this is the deal. Hey, do you want to be an informant? Yeah, I'll tell you if anything wrong happens, if anything bad goes down, I'll be sure and let you know, right? I'll be on the inside so I can make sure the feds, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, gets good intel, right? That's easy to say, yeah, I'll let you know what happens, be an informant. Once they get you to sign on the line as an informant, what do you think comes next? They show up at your house and say, hey, by the way, as an informant, you're going to do these things also. You're going to facilitate the infiltration by other officers and agents and provocateurs. You're going to make sure that the crowd knows who you are, what you believe, and to deny that there's anything nefarious going on. Hey, as a special forces operator, we're going to have you, Mr. Jeremy Brown, now that you've signed the dotted line and we got some of your short hairs in our hand, you're going to actually take special actions. Oh yeah, folks, there's a lot that can go on here. And I think he suspected that. I don't think he's a dummy. But what he did say was, quote, I never expected to be a prisoner of war in my own country. After being arrested almost 9 months after the January 6th so-called insurrection where everyone is being charged with criminal trespassing. There's a big fucking leap, folks, between criminal trespassing and insurrection. Let me get that on the screen again. Yeah, criminal trespassing is a minor misdemeanor. Insurrection is treason, folks. Is trying to overthrow a legitimate government. Now, overthrowing an illegitimate government, I guess we could argue that in philosophy all day long. So let's move on with the story. What is going on? When did the retired is he Army Ranger or Green Beret? It doesn't matter, folks. I mean, it matters and it doesn't. He was a Ranger. He was arrested at his home in Florida. He's being held in Pinellas County Jail. This is what he had to say. On Wednesday, yesterday, he called the Gateway Pundit from his jail cell in Pinellas County, Florida, and they spoke for about 20 minutes, Jeremy Brown with the press, the media. And here's what he said, folks. After 20 years of active duty, he never expected to be a prisoner of war in his own country. So he says, hey, here I am, I'm going to make the most of it. Now, my thing is, never expected to be a prisoner of war in my own country. I don't think he's Pollyannish. I don't think he's ignorant. I just don't think he saw how bad this can be. I don't think he was paying attention to what people like Katie Couric and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden have all been talking about, as well as what the Weather Underground leadership, who are still free Americans after committing acts of terror against the police. They want concentration camps. They want death camps for Americans, folks. That is a prisoner of war scenario, to be captured by your own government and put in a camp because you're a political prisoner. Folks, wars are political consequences. A war is a political action. You could say it's military. Yes, the military is used to enforce political decisions. It's all politics. So when he says, I never expected to be a prisoner of war, you're a prisoner of politics when it comes to arresting people for having an opinion that is the opposite of what the government wants or the political party in charge, right? He says this, he goes on to say, there is no way they will give me a bond. They're treating me like a domestic terrorist. The federal government will not likely let me out of jail because they know exactly what I'll do, and that is to continue to scream from the mountains that this is going on. And I'll warn Americans that this is what happens when your federal government comes to you and wants to infiltrate law-abiding citizens, and you refuse and you start to tell the public about their corruption. That is precisely why he has been arrested. Precisely. Because he was informing the public of what the federal government does. Their means, their methodology, basically their standard operating procedure. This is exactly what the founders warned us about. This is exactly why there's a First Amendment. This is exactly why there's a Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is exactly what the Declaration of Independence was about. Not only to operate, to be a document of law. The Declaration of Independence is an operable document at law. It is still alive and it still lives today. The Declaration of Independence. It not only outlines what was done back then, but it empowers people today. It says you have a right and a duty. That is, it is a document of charge, a document of action. It charges the people of the world, should they listen to it and adhere to it. It charges the people of the world with a duty to protect themselves and their country. It's sad, but I understand why he used the words, but it's sad that he never expected to be a prisoner of war. I would expect, folks, that as things get worse, that I could become a political prisoner in this country. I don't think I'm going to allow it to happen. I don't think I will allow myself to be arrested for being a law-abiding American, for paying my taxes, for caring about my country, for considering our traditions, culture, history, and laws to be sacred. Because to arrest me would be a political decision, an act of war against another citizen, just like Jeremy Brown is now a prisoner of war, a war that is being waged, a quiet war. Not a shooting war, a political war. Not a military war, a political war. And he is, as he says, a political prisoner. But a political prisoner of war is what he is, folks. There's an information war. There's a psychology war or PSYOP, psychological operation being carried out. It is economic. It is medical. It is educational. It is military. It is all things, folks, happening at once. And it's not going to go away. It's not just going to stop. Now, he goes on to say, what the government wants the narrative to be is that I'm out here running terrorist camps, that I'm at war. That's what Jeremy Brown is saying from his prison cell. He says, I want to warn Americans that this war has been going on for a very long time. And basically, Americans aren't listening. He's correct. Most Americans are not. You are. That's why I asked you to take these messages and spread them far and spread them wide. Send them to friends, family, coworkers, people you think have rejected prepping and the whole notion that there's something wrong in America. All you have to do is open your eyes and look around and you'll see that there's something wrong in America. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, a genius, a political scientist to figure it out, right? He continues, folks. It is an addiction to unrestrained federal power. Our federal government has lost its constitutional bearing. We live in insane times. Today them, tomorrow you. It started with January 6th protesters, and now it's literally parents who go to school boards and complain about the direction of their children's education. It's like what Hitler said. So here he is referring to the 1930s Nazi Germany that actually started in the 1920s. It started the Nazi Party started in the 20s, folks, the early 20s, with the Bierputal. They started back then. They got power after a decade, and then they turned Germany into Nazi Germany in the 30s. So he says this, Jeremy Brown, he says, it's like what Hitler said. If you control the children, you control the women. If you control the women, you control the men. This is how the incrementalism of tyranny takes hold. Like Thomas Jefferson said when asked, how much tyranny? How far will tyranny go? He said it will go as far as you allow it. They don't want us uniting, and they realize our own liberty. They don't want us uniting and realizing our own liberty is at stake. Liberty, folks, is freedom. I've been talking about liberty and freedom, especially since the 2016 election, where President Trump narrowly won because of the cheating, but he did win, narrowly won, folks, in 2016 without talking about liberty, freedom, our rights, the Constitution. But by the end of his 4-year term, that's all he was talking about, was our liberties, our rights, our freedoms, America, the Constitution, law and order, the fact that it had been usurped, that there was this ugly beast in Washington, D.C. that ran everything, folks. And the media and the government do not want us uniting. That's why they divide us. They divide us into smaller and smaller and smaller groups. Then they demonize us the way they're demonizing this great patriot, Jeremy Brown. Now, let's continue with why he's in jail. He said, the plot was they charged me with misdemeanor trespassing, right? So that's what they have the arrest warrant to show. Of course, they wait until 9 months later. It took 9 months for the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, etc., to prosecute an arrest warrant on misdemeanor trespassing. They brought a search warrant for a misdemeanor 900 miles away that they already have proof of. Approximately 40 to 60 agents searched my property for 5 hours. We have things on video that I don't want to discuss here, but the reality is they violated my constitutional right to 1, show the search warrant, 2, say what they are searching for and where they are searching for it at. And then they miraculously found a couple of items that I would say qualify as legal under the Second Amendment of the United States. Because we know your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. But then the third charge is something that is more diabolical. And again, I won't go into the details, but let's just say things magically appeared that they found in the search warrant. Isn't that interesting, folks? This is something that I have been warning everyone about. The government, with its holier-than-thou agents, whether at the federal, state, or local level, have no problem planting the evidence they need in order to make a prosecution stick, in order to convince a jury that a good person is a bad person, that someone with an outstanding track record in life, a person who is a member of the community, who is charitable, who has helped others, who works hard, who pays taxes, can all of a sudden be demonized because information can be planted on their computer. Information can be planted in their house. Let's just say things of a sexual nature, things of an explosive nature, things of a Second Amendment nature, things of a diabolical political nature, like creating right-wing military plans. Maybe they brought another set, another Lego set of the Capitol building and put it in his house. Or, folks, it could be all of those things. What better way to upset the American public than to charge this guy with a sex crime of some sort, to call him a terrorist and produce evidence that he was doing things illegal. Things, as he said in his interview, things magically appeared that they found and were in the search warrant. So what he's saying is what they found, folks, wasn't really there, weren't his, but they put it in the search warrant. We're going to look for this item or these items, and then they magically appeared and find them. He says this, he continues in his interview, I'd like Also, to point out that they claim they found explosives on and around the Capitol on January 6th. They claim they cleared the U.S. Capitol in 1.5 hours. He says this, from my experience, I don't buy that it took only an hour and a half to clear the U.S. Capitol for explosives. Folks, he's got a point. Here's where his professional experience comes in. Let's see, the Capitol building is not your home, which it took them 5 hours to search for some basic criminal evidence. Took them 5 hours to search his home. But when it comes to the Capitol building, which is the size of several U.S. city blocks, the Capitol building and grounds, folks, is huge, massive, hundreds and hundreds of rooms, offices, closets, meeting rooms, hallways, bathroom facilities, desks, cubby holes. It would take numerous sweeping and resweeping by bomb-sniffing dogs, experts in explosives, to search everything, to ferret out everything, to look for hidden places. Because, folks, imagine if they came in and did a quick 1.5 hour sweep, and then a day later something blew up. Don't you think, folks, don't you think that the senators and congressmen who were injured or were scared, like AOC, even though she was blocks and blocks away from the Capitol building, she was still scared and feared for her life, because she's AOC. But if anyone was injured, they would be pissed off at the police for not doing a more thorough job of sweeping the building. Now, let me continue. Jeremy Brown, the man who's in jail, in political prison right now, being held in Florida, of all places, for a federal crime. He said he will not say over the phone that the feds planted evidence. But then he added this. He says, but I will say, I will be able to make the case that their accusation is false. Anyone who stands up against the agenda is going to be taken down. Folks, this is where we are at in the United States of America. This is where we're at in the United States of America. We are in a political war. Political partisanship is now conflict. It is conflict-based, and the political leftists have made it violent. Look at 2020. We had Marxist organizations, anti-freedom, anti-America, anti-Constitution, violent terrorist groups were excused and encouraged by political leftists. This was a political decision that played out nationally played out. As far as I'm concerned, it's not just malfeasance of office. It's not just dereliction of duty. In my opinion, it is treasonous, what was allowed to happen. It was treason on a national level, treason on a state level. That's right, folks. The 50 states are themselves independent, sovereign entities. Though they are in a union, an agreement with each other, treason against the state is still treason, just as it is treason against the federal government. We are engaged in a political war. Acts of treason, violence, and political attacks are occurring right now. Are you prepared? I'm not saying do anything violent, dangerous, harmful, mean, cruel, or anything else. Nothing illegal, not breaking terms of service. I'm certainly not glamorizing any of this shit or glorifying it. I'm not inciting violence. I'm not inciting insurrection. I'm not inciting anything. I'm saying get prepared, because at some point, there could be a knock on your neighbor's door, a knock in your town or county. And then you get to wonder, am I next? Am I at risk? Am I really a bad guy? Well, I know that the answer is no, I'm not a bad guy. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed. Semper Fi. Get prepared. Oh, and it's always been about freedom.